Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Let's get after it.
Archaeologists say writings on an ancient tablet confirmed there was a global flood.
Noah's Ark was allegedly found in Turkey. This is a significant ship in biblical history because it marks the end and a new beginning, even describing an annual festival that supposedly took place on a mountain slope to commemorate the Ark's landing. Noah's Ark is said to have come to rest on the mountains of Ararat following a 150-day flood about 5,000 years ago. Researchers now believe they've found evidence of human activity near the mountain's boat-shaped formation from between 5,500 and 3,000 BC. Archaeologists with the Noah's Ark Scans project said that using advanced 3D scans, they have located a giant shape in the Turkish mountains, the proportions of which match the biblical descriptions of Noah's Ark. The discovery was made in the Durupinar site on Mount Tendurek in eastern Turkey, the area believed to be the location of Mount Ararat, the mythical resting place of Noah's Ark, as described in the book of Genesis. Researcher Andrew Jones and lead scientist Dr. Fethi Ahmet Yüksel of the Department of Geophysical Engineering, Applied Geophysics Department of Istanbul University, told British media that 3D scans of the area discovered a formation of the exact length of the Ark, detailed in the Bible as being around 150 meters or 300 cubits in biblical terms. Jones said, such parallel line and right angles below the surface is something you would not expect to see in a natural geologic formation. But these results are what you would expect to see if this is a man-made boat matching the biblical requirements of Noah's Ark.
That's some pretty compelling evidence, but until they start pulling out actual pieces of wood that are screwed together and remnants of animal feces and all of the material and whatnot that they use to take care of the animals, until they have like some more definitive proof, this is to me just going to be another instance of them thinking that they've found it, because I've heard this story time and time again. Oh, we think we found Noah's Ark, and it never amounts to anything.
Hieroglyphs can convey a complete ideology. One hieroglyph can convey a complete understanding of something. It doesn't mean just one word. A glyph can mean many things. Even if you look at, for example, the glyph for Aum, right? The little 3 that looks like a little squiggle on the side, the Aum glyph. It doesn't mean a letter or a word. It means it's a complete ideology, complete understanding. And some of these hieroglyphs have the same exact purpose. So you're taking these glyphs and you're etching these stories with double entendre meanings into sandstone on top of electromagnetic active areas. Now you're creating frequencies that allow this communication or this light language to begin to work. And the person that has the capability of tapping into this or understanding what the energy they're picking up and discerning it through the body now can communicate through this language of light. It's a very powerful way of communicating. And now in these modern days, we use emojis. So we've got the downgraded version of the glyphs. We're back to hieroglyphs again, but it's just in emojis.
The hieroglyphs, to me, I think hieroglyphs hold the answer to a lot of unanswered questions. Whenever we were watching that video the other day when they were showing that the hieroglyphs were actually produced in sand whenever frequencies and sound waves were run through them inside the pyramid, it actually created the Eye of Horus, which still blows my mind days later. To think that all those hieroglyphs were not just conjured up out of their thoughts. These were actually the representation of frequencies. So there's deeper meaning to their language than just the phonetic type of language that we've created today. And I find that absolutely fascinating. It makes me wonder, is that language used for something other than just language?
They live much longer than normal human beings. They have a fuller understanding of deep space, and they live on islands in the air or islands in the sky. So frankly, I think we have a name for that kind of people. We're talking about extraterrestrial visitors, and some of the information that Plato had really could only have come from such people. When, for instance, Plato describes what planet Earth looks like, he says it is a sphere suspended in space, and from a distance it's swirled with color like a marble. And he says it's white and it's blue and it's gold. And suddenly he's describing Earth as it really does look from a distance. How could he possibly know? Unless someone who had seen it from a distance had told him. He may have traveled, but he doesn't say that. He may have remote viewed, but he doesn't say that. What he does mention is these people on islands in the sky who have a deeper understanding of space and know about the movement of objects through space.
But does the Earth look like that? Because we don't honestly know, because NASA has only ever showed us 3D representations of the Earth. So he could be completely wrong, and we would have no way of knowing, because we've never seen a true picture of the Earth ourselves.
Every time you think, every thought, including the thoughts that people are thinking right now, just to watch this video, is creating a light wave that's leaving from their skull and going out into space-time. And that light wave is an electromagnetic wave that's engraved or I should say piggyback with data on it. And so that data, every thought that you've ever thought and everyone else's thoughts exists in space-time all around us. Just like radio waves coming out from a radio station and propagating through space for all eternity. If you're 10 light years away and you pick up the I Love Lucy from 1960 frequency, you can watch it no matter where you are in the galaxy. And so the same thing is happening with all of our thoughts. So in that case, the book of life is actually real. And so understanding that the spoken word and the light waves that combine together, cymatic frequencies coming out of your throat and conscious light waves combine together to literally create your reality tunnel. So the most important thing I can say for today that we can utilize today is to understand every word that you speak, analyze it before you speak it, because you literally have power over your life.
And this is something that I'm actively working on correcting with my own behavior, is self-deprecating humor. I've gotten into a bad habit of making fun of myself and cutting myself down whenever I'm joking about. And although I don't mean the things that I say, I'm aware now that they do have a negative impact on me. That's something I'm actively working on correcting. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, I'll make a new one just like it every single day. It'd be awesome if you'd hit that subscribe button and come back tomorrow to join me.
Some underground researchers hint at 963 Hz. This frequency, seldom discussed in mainstream circles, is often termed the God frequency. Experiments with it have yielded puzzling results, from heightened intuition to vivid dreams of other worlds. Infrasound occupies a unique realm in the auditory spectrum, residing just below the threshold of human perception. Despite its invisibility to our ears, its effects are far from inconspicuous. These frequencies, typically falling below 20 Hz, can incite a myriad of reactions, from unease to awe, often being linked to paranormal experiences. Historical documents, obscured by time and secrecy, hint at ancient civilizations understanding the power of these silent tones. Whispered accounts from the underground corridors of Egyptian pyramids speak of chambers where infrasound frequencies of 18.98 Hz resonated, echoing the same frequency as the Fayum oasis's winds. Those who ventured into these chambers often reported feelings of unease or of being watched, attributing these sensations to gods or spirits. Shifting from the sands of Egypt to the stone circles of the British Isles, Stonehenge, a marvel that still puzzles modern scientists, is believed by some esoteric scholars to act as a natural infrasound generator. During specific celestial alignments, with winds blowing from the right direction, frequencies around 17 Hz are said to emanate from its core. Legends abound of mystics and druids experiencing visions during these times. But infrasound's reach extends beyond ancient wonders. Modern encounters with the paranormal, apparitions, cold spots, and unexplained dread could be tied to these sub-audible frequencies. Some scientists postulate that infrasound at around 19 Hz can cause the human eye to resonate, leading to visual distortions or hallucinations, providing a potential natural explanation for ghostly sightings. Yet, nature isn't the only manipulator of infrasound. Classified experiments in the 20th century saw governments and secret societies delving into its potential applications. The Moscow signal, for instance, was a rumored infrasound frequency of 9.75 Hz, said to be directed at the US Embassy in Moscow during the Cold War. Staff working there reported chronic unease and fatigue, leading to speculations of it being an infrasonic weapon. Similarly, hushed stories revolve around societies using infrasound in initiation rites.
The more that we watch videos about frequencies and stuff, the more I'm convinced that Tesla was right when he said that frequencies are the answer to everything. It seems like they affect every part of our life, and the more we learn about frequencies and how much they affect, the deeper the mystery seems to go. It literally seems as if understanding frequencies, like truly understanding them, would open up this new form of technology to where we would be able to achieve that utopia that we're all trying to get to.
Premier of the island and the finance minister, the two prominent politicians, they would always be there having beers and he would have drinks with them. And he tells this story about how the the premier told him that a few years earlier they had gone to this survey area for a proposed gold mine. There was a foreign company trying to get mining rights. And so they jumped in their Toyota Hilux and they went up this mountain path to try and survey the site. Said they'd been away from the truck for about half an hour. But when they got back, in the distance before they made it to the truck, they could see two huge giants standing next to the truck.
Mm-hmm.
And they all freaked out. Like, all the locals started screaming and ran away. And this premier said he and his buddy just kind of stood there watching. And one of these big, hairy giants just in one easy lift, just picked up the front of the truck and just moved it onto the road. It was like, so Mango was a local who passed away in the year 2000. She had been kidnapped by the giants, he said, 50 years ago and had essentially vanished for 25 years. And people had given up hope of finding her again. They're like, the giants have taken her. She was found. She was found pregnant, hysterically frothing at the mouth in a garden in the northeastern coast of Guadalcanal. A giant had taken her as his wife, and she was mentally unstable for the remainder of her life, but through her pregnancy, she gave birth to a half-caste boy. The bastard boy lived to the age of 5, but was unfortunately killed by one of her brothers. There's more than one of these stories. There are numerous handed-down traditional stories, he says, in which the giants would storm villages, grabbing people, ripping off limbs, and eating them right there and then, while everyone ran in absolute terror. Also, he said there are many stories about what the Solomon Islander people called the killer giants, who would persistently return to their villages to make a meal out of them. Sometimes during these village attacks, there were groups of these killer giants. And within this book is recorded the well-known Guadalcanal traditional story of the 5 killer giant brothers. And apparently everyone knows this story. Whenever we've done stories on the show, whenever we've done entire episodes dedicated to the topic of giants, you always run into this folklore, wherever it is in the world, whether it's in the Americas,
That they're cannibalistic.
or like, the Middle East or Europe, that they encountered these cannibals. They were man-eaters. And they were vicious, and that was this struggle against these incredibly violent, they always described them as mad. He said within that cave, he was shown a perfect 15-foot giant skeleton. Now, he says, the author, Marius, says he never got to see it, obviously, but when I was looking around today for follow-up investigations, I found that this Polish adventurer I mentioned earlier in the show, his name's Wojtek Babilowicz, he went there in 2011. He actually did some crowdfunding, got together some funds to go to the island, and he found one of these graves. Now, it's not the 15-foot claimed skeleton that the Prime Minister said he saw as a child, but it's still pretty impressive. Let's take a listen.
And this is apparently the grave of a giant person. It's more than 7 meters tall, long.
7 meters?
Of the same person, which is more than 3 meters across. So
He says there, that's the head, 3 meters across.
don't know. We have no way of telling. We would have to take the bones to make sure. But of course, taking the bones out is impossible. It's out of the question.
Is it, though? Couldn't somebody sneak in there in the cover of night and dig that up and get some answers? I want to go to the Solomon Islands so bad, and the last time I said that in the video, I got questioned in the comments about why. I just want to know if giants really existed. I'm convinced that that they did exist. I'm just beyond curious if they still exist, and if they're still around in the Solomon Islands. I'd like to see one, even if it means putting my life at risk to have that answer, to know that I think seeing a giant with my own eyes, I think it would be the ultimate proof that we're being lied to. It would be the key to unlocking a lot of reservations I have about the lies and stuff that I've been taught throughout my life.
About a quarter of a century ago, I was the judge, jury, and executioner on every New Age device that came through Southern California. That included free energy motors, healing devices, you name it. And in the course of a good year, we had examined maybe 100, 125 devices, and about 99.9% of them were either placebo, garbage, or wishful thinking, hallucination. But once in a long while, we would come across something that was exceptional. And in 1962, it was the Lakowski multiple wave oscillator. Now, I'm going to say I reserve the right to change my mind about anything I'm telling you. But what we did is we built a very small device, small being the size of an attaché case, that had the Lakowski antennas driven by a Tesla coil. Many of these had wound up in the hands of veterinarians. We published the schematics, and the veterinarians were curing cancer in animals that other vets would put to sleep. So word would get around, and the veterinarians would bring sick animals to the guy that had it, and they got well. Well, at the time, what we assumed was that we were simply shock exciting a number of dipoles. Think of some big brandy glasses. Bong, 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 bong. And when you drove these with enough of a spark, so that the spark would drive all of these concentrically down to the center, each of these would emit a particular frequency depending on the physical size of the dipole. The heterodynes of these, the sums and differences of all of these put together, would put out sort of an RF white noise. Well, when we finally looked at the spectrum of this on a huge Hewlett-Packard gigahertz spectrum analyzer, we found a lot of unexpected harmonics way up in the gigahertz range that we later found were caused by the arc itself. Let's say that the end of this screwdriver is showing these sparks that you could draw off the secondary of a Tesla coil. Obviously, when this was at zero, there was nothing here. But if we looked at it with a very high-speed camera, and the spark would go out to about 4.5 inches and then collapse. Of course, your eye can't see this because of persistence of vision. What we had was an antenna of 0 dimensions at this point, micromillimeter dimensions until it got out to about 4.5 inches, and then collapsed. So part of this energy was coming from this ionized air. You know, when the air is ionized, you have practically a dead, and then collapsed. So part of this energy was coming from this ionized air. You know, when the air is ionized, you have practically a dead short between here and here. Tremendous amount of energy can be handled by this ionized or short-circuited path of air. So what we had not taken into account in the original thinking about this device was that we had, besides the rather broad spectra of each of these dipoles, which is shock excited, we had another frequency modulated signal on top of this. At the time, we had simply assumed that since you were in this direction to the antenna, you were absorbing an H vector. We knew that the E vector, which radiates from the ends because of skin effect, would not penetrate the biosystem. It would run around the surface, which is why you can stand in the field of a Tesla coil and light a light bulb in your hand and not be electrocuted. We were getting really stunning results. The animals would respond to this much more rapidly than the human beings. My vice president many years ago in Beck Tech was the astronaut Gordon Cupper. We loaned it to him. He had a 15-year-old police dog that had been part of the family forever. Dog was dragging itself around. Its hind legs weren't working. After 2 days, the dog was up, frisking around, running around the swimming pool, so Gordon would take this box wherever he went, to Washington, Houston, NASA. He was getting people out of wheelchairs. But we're not supposed to talk about this, and it took a long time to get that thing back from him a few years ago when we went our separate ways.
So is this a frequency healing device? Because that's what it sounds like. Man, I'm glad there are people out there that are smarter than folks like me, because all I can do is enjoy the benefits of their work, the fruits of their labor. There's no way I'd be able to conjure up some stuff like this. Absolutely fascinating. The more we learn about frequencies, the more mind-bending they get.
What is praying? Praying is looking to cast a spell. A Christian may not want to admit that because they're going to say, oh, that's of the demons and all that kind of stuff. No. When you pray, you're trying to cast a spell. When something goes wrong and you start praying, you're trying to say words outside of your vocal cords to an outside entity, but you're really speaking to the universe, and you're trying to get things to alchemically convert to your favor. It's a spell. You're trying to cast a spell. That's what praying is. But when you pray from a position of weakness, where you're begging, hoping, and wishing, and you're pushing out that low frequency energy into the universe, you're going to get more of that back. And so I pray from a position of power. And my position is thank you, unconditional love, and commanding. If somebody cuts me off in traffic, I don't get angry and start chasing them down and flipping them off the middle finger and pulling out a gun and all this kind of stuff. I just say, bless that person. They could be in a bad situation. They could have got a phone call that their kid just got hurt in school. Or they could just be careless. Bless them. Let them make it to their destination safely. That's how I pray.
This all comes back to speaking things into existence and having that positive mindset, not thinking negatively. It all makes sense. If you're praying from a negative perspective, from a negative mindset, and you're saying, oh, everything's going wrong, nothing's going my way, please help me, help me, help me, you're expecting things to continue to go wrong. If you're praying and saying, hey, I know things are not that great right now, but look at all of these blessings and good things I've got going on, and I want those things to continue, and I want to build off of those things, and you're focused on what's positive, then of course you're going to see more positive in your life.
What would happen if a solar storm hit our planet? Immediately, northern lights appear in places they usually can't be seen from. After 15 minutes, satellites and GPS devices hardly work anymore, making worldwide communication almost impossible. After 30 minutes, the storm is in full motion, and the rich take cover in underground bunkers to protect themselves. After 1 hour, most of our electrical devices start to glitch out and break. After 2 hours, the intense electromagnetic radiation wipes out entire power grids and the communication systems that are left, making it a full-on global blackout. Right after, many disastrous events would happen. Airplanes would break and fall down from the sky due to the intense radiation. Trains would crash and hospitals would be without power, making it almost impossible to treat certain patients. After 1 week and millions of people dead due to the technological malfunctions, the solar storm is finally over. After 1 month, power grids and communication systems in first world nations are working again, but global supply chains still need to be updated. After 1 year, most of the humanity is back to normal living standards.
That's pretty terrifying. I don't think I want to live through that, but all these bunkers and stuff being built makes you wonder if they expect something like this to be coming down the pipeline.
There was an obsession in the ancient world over bloodlines. Egyptians in the Book of the Dead would be obsessed with this idea of a being that was a ruler that they thought was like a descendant of the gods, that they would go through processes to try to bring that soul back in after it died to rule again. And I don't want this to come across as being some kind of a racial or superior thing. They had the opinion that there were gifts within those bloodlines that connected to these ancient Anunnaki Anuna gods of Sumer. They believed that the kings and rulers there were descendants of them. Some of the weird things we have evidence to support that, though, is that some of the lengths of reigns is really weird. That some of them ruled for like 1,000 years.
Did they really rule for 1,000 years, though? Or did they just believe that they were continually reincarnated and were the same person and just taught that to the next generation? Hey, you're me. I'm going to pass on all this information to you, but you are me. You're going to continue my reign, because that would also make sense. But guys, I'm going to go ahead and end it there. This is the end of the clips today. I hope you enjoyed them. I will be back tomorrow with another video. I hope you come back to see me. I hope you have a great, safe, fantastic day, and I will see you tomorrow.